Hello everyone, a quick reminder that this is part 3 in a series about warm-ups. Part 1 covered why we warm up and what should be in a good warm-up. Part 2 covered a very general warm-up, the kind of thing that you should be doing for that. And this is part 3 where we're talking about how to use warm-up sets to improve your lifting for your first main exercise of the day. This will all make a lot more sense if you watch those videos first. A lot of people will go into the gym and they'll look at their program and it will say that they have to squat 100 kilos for 5 reps. And they'll go and do their 5-minute cardio, and then they'll go and load the bar up to 100 kilos straight away and start doing their 100 kilo squat. The problem with that is that first set probably isn't going to be very good. And even if you're an amazing squatter, if you warm up in that way and just go straight into your working weight, it's probably not going to be as good as it could be for your level of amazingness. So when you do that and you jump straight into your working weight, chances are you're going to struggle to hit the same kind of depth that you normally would. You might feel that weight is a bit of a shock to the system and it may take you a while to engage with that weight. And it's just not going to be as good as it could have been. And by set 2 or set 3, you might be in the groove and it might be flowing much more nicely. But for a lot of people, set 2 or 3 is going to be over halfway through their workout, maybe even at the end of their workout for that particular movement already. So if we start to do warm-up sets, not only are we much more prepared for that weight when we get to it and much more switched on and more mobile, but we've also done a ton of rehearsal of that movement as well. I would say on average, my clients do 3 to 6 warm-up sets before they hit working weight. So that's 3 to 6 sets of additional practice on your movement. And that's going to really improve the way you perform your working sets. So warm-up sets involve you taking the major exercise, maybe usually the first exercise of the day, and gradually increasing the weight on that until you get to your target weight for your first working set. So let's say that my client wants to go and squat 100 kilos for 5 reps. I'm going to build their weight up till they get close to 100 kilos so that we're ready for that first set. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what kind of increments I use for that, what kind of reps I use for that. But before I go into that any further, this is where I want to go back to talking about potentiation. So like I said, with some clients, I don't do the textbook explosive exercises as per the definition of potentiation. But when I come to these warm-up sets and we're gradually increasing the weight, I might use the first few steps in that process where the weight is still quite light to build up some dynamic effort, some explosive intention in the main exercise. So if we're talking about the squat and we're talking about a target working weight of 100 kilos, then while my client is working around 40, 50, 60 kilos, I would cue them to ease their way into the bottom of their squat because they may still be warming up their depth and their mobility. But when they start to drive up out of their squat, I will usually encourage them to make that weight look easy by driving up aggressively and really trying to power up on the way up out of that movement. With these kind of weights, they should be able to execute this movement with quite a lot of speed. We can use that as a way of driving up their ability to produce force and produce it quickly. Then as the weight gets heavier, it becomes much more about dialing in technique, making sure they're ready for that first weight. So I'll put some examples on the screen of how I would normally build up to a working weight in a warm-up set. But typically what I'll say first of all is that I will decrease the number of reps in each warm-up set the closer we get to working weight. Because the idea is we want you to feel that weight, we want you to know how that weight feels, but we don't want you to be super fatigued. So typically while the bar is very light, I'll get you to do 5 reps. Then as it gets to intermediate kind of weights, we'll drop down to about 3 reps. And then usually once we get close to that working weight, you'll drop down to just single reps. And it always feels pointless to unrack the bar, walk out and do 1 rep of a warm-up weight and then re-rack it, but it just starts to bridge that gap in a way that builds up very little fatigue. So some people need more warm-up sets and some people need less warm-up sets. And the way that you determine how many warm-up sets you have and how large the jumps are in weight each time is heavily dependent on the work that you want them to do for their working weight. So I'll give you some examples. Let's say, for example, I have this client squatting 100 kilos. I will start them around 40 to 50 kilos to get them start warming up. That'll be their 5 rep weight. Then we might move to 60 to 70 kilos for 3 reps. And then as we get closer into that 80, 90, around 100, those might be single reps. And as I'm going through those, I'm reducing the size of each jump. So initially I may go from 40 kilos to 60 kilos, but then I might only go from 60 kilos to 75. So that was a 20 kilo jump from 40 to 60, then a 15 kilo from 60 to 75. Then I might go to 85, which might be a 10 kilo jump. then I might either go from 90 or 95 and then to 100. So 5 to 10 kilo jumps from that point onwards. And that just reduces the shock to the system. There are smaller differences between each weight you've squatted up to that point. So as I mentioned, some of that process depends on what your intentions are with your working set. If I have a client that's doing 100 as a heavy double, like a set of 2, then I'm probably also going to get them to do 1 rep around 92.5 or 95 just before they start, so they're much closer percentage-wise to that high effort they're going to do. If I have a client that's doing 100 kilos for 10 reps, which sounds horrible, then I might be comfortable with them just doing 1 rep at 90 kilos and then going straight up to 100. Because I know those first couple of reps at 100 are still going to be quite a low percentage of their maximum effort, and they've got time to get into the groove of feeling how that weight feels for them. So when I plan these jumps out, I'm thinking about my client's confidence in the movement. I'm looking at how they're performing the weights as well. How quickly are they dropping into their squat? How quickly are they standing up? I'm also thinking about the overall intensity of that weight for them, how many sets and reps they're planning to do. I'm kind of figuring that all out as I go. So I was playing this back and editing it, and I realized it made it sound like I winged the whole session based on the warm-up, and I didn't like how that sounded. So just to clarify, I have a set, sets and reps and weight for the client planned out in advance, but when I'm watching the warm-up, I just mean that I compare their warm-up performance against what I expect them to do in the session, because it helps me see if there are any glaring issues like them being super tired or, looking like they can do more than what I programmed as well. So yeah, I don't wing the session, but I do judge things partly by warm-up performance. I'm tailoring all of that to them as an individual. There's one other reason that I really love doing warm-up sets with my clients. It's why I do quite a lot of them probably compared to other trainers, is because, like I said, it's good rehearsal, it's good preparation, but it's also a good assessment for my client on that day. Like most strength coaches, I plan weights out in advance for my clients. I know roughly what I want them to be lifting on a given day, but there are always fluctuations in human performance that we can't predict. That means that on a day, I like to use a couple of different weights to start to get a sense of where my client is at. If every weight is flying up and they're telling me it's easy, then I know we're probably on track for a good, strong day. If they come in and they're about 10 kilos away from their working weight and they're already telling me it feels hard, or something doesn't feel right, or they're struggling with the technique today, then maybe I don't quite jump them straight up to working weight straight away. This is something that I drill into my online clients especially, or my clients that I only see once a week or once a fortnight, because obviously I'm much less up to date with how they are feeling on a day-to-day basis. My clients that I see 3 times a week, we still do this process, but I'm much more in touch with how they're getting on all the time. So I think that's it for today. We've talked a little bit about the importance of warming up and how that mindset has changed over time. We've talked about how to go through the warm-up, all the different boxes we need to tick as we do that. And then we've talked a little bit about warm-up sets, which is one of the most underrated part of warming up. Let me know in the comments if this has influenced the way that you will warm up. Will you now change the way you warm up, or are these things you already do? Is there anything you would add to the warm-up that you think I've missed? Let me know all of that in the comments below, or just tell me how amazing the channel is. That's great as well. And I will see you again for the next video. But don't forget to like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that stuff as well. And I'll see you again next time.